Sometimes I wonder, I hope that he wasn't scared, that it all happened pretty quickly for him.
In a world where celebrity stories are often fleeting and dramatic, some tales quietly linger, etched in time, far deeper than headlines. They're the kind of stories that aren't just about fame or success, but about genuine love, pain, and personal truth. Long before social media and viral trends, some relationships unfolded with a raw humanity that left fans wondering what really happened behind the curtain. For years, fans of John Denver have asked the same lingering questions. Was his love story with Annie Martell Denver as picture-perfect as his ballads made it seem? Did fame cost him the one thing he couldn't write a song to fix? Or was there something more, something unsaid? Annie Denver, now 78, has been largely quiet about her past. But recently, a subtle confirmation brought a decades-old rumor back into focus, and the internet hasn't stopped buzzing since. Let's take a deep dive into what was really confirmed, what fans have speculated for years, and how the truth may finally be unfolding. John Denver met Annie Martell in 1966, at a time when his career was just beginning to rise and hers was rooted in simplicity and grounded charm. Their love burnt bright in the public eye, a kind of wholesome romance that fans clung to as the perfect blend of stardom and sincerity. When John wrote Annie's song, it didn't just become a #1 hit. It became a cultural love letter, a timeless anthem that wrapped their love in melody and metaphor. The fact that he wrote it in just 10 minutes after a fight only added to the mythos. It was raw emotion turned into art. "You fill up my senses." Those words became an ode not only to Annie but to every kind of deep, consuming love. They seemed to have it all: romance, success, a beautiful home in Colorado, and the kind of story people dream about. But life behind the curtain often tells a different tale. As John's fame skyrocketed, so did the demands on his time and energy. Tour after tour, album after album, award after award. His dream was coming true, but every dream has its cost. Annie had once been his anchor, but the music industry doesn't leave much room for stillness. And slowly, that emotional distance crept in. Whispers began over time, subtle, quiet, but persistent. There wasn't a scandal, no betrayal in the tabloid sense. The rumor wasn't a storm, but a slow drift, a growing realization that the very success John fought so hard for was becoming the very thing that was driving them apart. The long absences, the constant movement, the changing priorities. And while Annie was never one to step into the spotlight, many believe she felt its heat from the sidelines, watching, supporting, and waiting. But love doesn't always survive in the shadow of greatness. Their separation in 1982 surprised many. The world still associated Annie with John, especially through his songs. But the signature at the bottom of the divorce papers marked a quieter, more painful ending. And while John continued to speak of her with respect and affection, Annie never sought the public's sympathy or attention. She kept her silence, not as an act of bitterness, but perhaps as an act of grace. People still ask what really caused the end. Was it just the demands of fame? Did John choose his music over his marriage? The answers remain mostly unspoken, but the ache echoes in the lyrics he left behind. Songs full of longing, memory, and the kind of regret that's never quite named. Even after their split, Annie's influence lingered in his music. She wasn't just a chapter, she was part of the core story, the original spark. Their love may have changed shape, but its impact remained. Fans who listen closely can hear it, not just in Annie's song, but in the softer, more introspective tracks that came later. There's a tenderness that never really disappeared, and that's what makes their story so compelling. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. Two people caught between love and ambition, trying to navigate a world that doesn't often make space for both. There was beauty, there was heartbreak, and there was something deeply human in all of it. Their story reminds us that even the most iconic love songs come from very real places, places filled with hope, flaws, choices, and consequences. John and Annie weren't just a couple. They were a mirror of what so many relationships go through when dreams grow louder than the quiet moments that once held everything together. And while their time together eventually ended, the love that once inspired a generation never truly left the airwaves. It lingers still in every note, in every lyric, in every heart that's ever felt the push and pull of love and life. After John Denver and Annie Martell divorced in 1982, the world expected Annie to fade quietly into the background. And in many ways, she did, but not out of bitterness or defeat. She simply chose a different path, one not lit by stage lights or accompanied by roaring applause. While John continued to write, tour, and live in the spotlight, Annie chose purpose over publicity. She focused on building a meaningful life rooted in community, family, and service. Over the years, she became a dedicated school commissioner and a passionate advocate for children's education. Her quiet commitment spoke volumes. She didn't need to be seen to make an impact. Even as she moved forward, Annie never distanced herself emotionally from the love she once shared with John. She never remarried. Those who knew her well say she kept certain keepsakes, old letters, photos, and memories preserved not with sorrow, but with a gentle reverence. There was no scandal, no bitterness, no tell-all, just quiet grace in the background of a story that had once captivated the world. While John became a household name, known not only for his music but also for his environmental activism and complex personal life, Annie remained respectfully silent. But people wondered, did she still think about him? Did she still love him? Did the pain of their breakup ever truly fade? In recent years, those questions found an answer. Subtle, profound, and deeply human. Now 78 years old, Annie Denver has started to share more of her truth. In a few interviews and public appearances between 2023 and 2024, she finally spoke, calmly, thoughtfully, with the weight of time behind every word. There was no attempt to rewrite history, no drama to stir headlines. Just a woman looking back at a chapter of her life that helped shape her for better or worse. She was asked directly if John's career had impacted their marriage more than the public ever understood. Her answer was simple, but it echoed with emotion. "It was hard," she said, "not because he didn't love me. He did, deeply. But the world pulled him in every direction, and I couldn't follow him into all of them." That sentence landed like a quiet revelation. For years, fans speculated that John's constant touring and relentless pursuit of success created a space between them that love alone couldn't fill. And now, Annie had confirmed it, not with resentment, but with reflection. She didn't blame him. She didn't express regret. She simply acknowledged the truth that many relationships face. Sometimes love exists, but the paths diverge. Then came the words that reignited the public's fascination with their story. "He loved music," she said, "but I don't think he ever stopped loving me." That admission, soft and powerful, stirred a new wave of emotion among longtime fans. Because even after everything, the separation, the years apart, the silence, Annie still believed in the love they once shared. And maybe in her heart, she always carried a piece of it with her. Their story wasn't about betrayal or drama. It was about love that lived in real-world conditions, beautiful, flawed, and ultimately tested by time and ambition. Annie's life after John was one of quiet dignity. And now, in her later years, her words have given new depth to a story many thought they already understood. The woman who once inspired one of the most iconic love songs in history has shown the world that strength doesn't always need a spotlight. Sometimes, it looks like a life well lived in the shadows, and a voice that speaks only when it truly has something to say. John Denver, with his radiant smile and songs full of sunshine, built a public image that felt wholesome and full of life. But beneath that warmth was a man grappling with deep inner struggles. In his autobiography and later interviews, he pulled back the curtain just enough to show the cracks. Fame had taken its toll. The joyful troubadour who sang about country roads and rocky mountains also wrestled with alcohol dependency, emotional instability, and the relentless pressure of being everything to everyone. Behind every performance was a man chasing something he couldn't quite catch: peace, purpose, or perhaps forgiveness. He often spoke of regret in his later years, especially when reflecting on his marriage to Annie. There was no bitterness in his words, just a quiet acknowledgement of mistakes that cost him more than he ever anticipated. "I lost my marriage because I was too focused on the next show, the next album, the next flight," he said in a late 1990s interview. Annie deserved better. It was one of the most vulnerable moments he ever shared publicly. And when Annie, decades later, confirmed that it was his career, not a lack of love, that strained their relationship, fans saw both sides of the story fall into place. Their voices, separated by years, formed a duet of reflection. Two people who truly loved each other but couldn't navigate the chaos of fame together. The echoes of that love still live in one of John's most iconic creations, Annie's Song. Written in just 10 minutes, it captured a love so full it couldn't be contained. "You fill up my senses," became one of the most recognizable lines in music history. It wasn't just a ballad, it was a confession. A moment of raw, honest emotion captured forever in melody. For fans, it became a soundtrack to their own relationships, played at weddings, anniversaries, and even memorials. But when Annie finally spoke out, her words added a bittersweet layer to the song. "That song still makes me emotional," she said. "It was real. He wrote it from the heart, and I felt every word." Her voice carried no resentment, just memory. And for listeners, Annie's Song transformed from a romantic anthem to something even more powerful. A tribute to a love that was once whole and always true, even if it couldn't last. For John, that song may have been both a high point and a haunting reminder. After their divorce, he never quite found a relationship that matched what he had with Annie. He continued to pour his emotions into music, sometimes more melancholic than before. He struggled with identity, with staying grounded, and with reconciling who he was with who the world believed him to be. Fame came with applause, but it also came with silence, the kind that fills up hotel rooms after the stage lights go out. Their story resonates because it reflects something deeply human: the challenge of balancing love and ambition, connection and identity. John and Annie weren't undone by scandal or betrayal, but by the quiet erosion of time and pressure. Their reflections, his in moments of public honesty, hers in a calm voice years later, show that love, even when it ends, can leave behind something lasting. And in the end, that's what Annie's Song became. Not just a hit single, but a legacy. A permanent reminder of a time when love filled the spaces between music and silence, between presence and absence. It's a song that still makes hearts ache. Not because it failed, but because it mattered. Because even now, when the notes play and the lyrics flow, it still feels like a love that never truly left. The story of John and Annie Denver continues to stir hearts, even decades after their separation. While most celebrity relationships fade into the background of pop culture, theirs refuses to be forgotten. It keeps resurfacing, not because of scandal or tabloid drama, but because it taps into something far more powerful: authenticity. People connect to it because it reflects real love, real choices, and real consequences. And now, with Annie finally opening up after years of silence, a new generation is discovering their story, while longtime fans are finally seeing it come full circle. Social media is flooded with clips of Annie's song, softly playing over old photos of the couple. John with his guitar and easy smile, Annie with that grounded grace that drew him in from the beginning. Comment sections fill with emotional replies from fans who lived through the era and from younger listeners who feel like they've stumbled upon something sacred. YouTube documentaries, TikTok tributes, and fan forums are diving deep into their journey, treating their love not just as a chapter in music history, but as a lesson in the complexity of human connection. Nostalgia. There's a reason this story won't let go of the internet. It's not just nostalgia, it's recognition. The way John poured his heart into his songs, and the way Annie quietly carried that love long after the spotlight faded, speaks to something universal. It's not often you find a love story where both people still speak kindly of each other after everything, where the bond clearly remains even when the relationship doesn't survive. One of the most profound parts of Annie's life after John was her decision never to remarry. It wasn't because she didn't have the opportunity, she did. But when asked about it, her answer was simple and deeply moving. I didn't need to. What we had was enough. It didn't last forever, but it was real. That single sentence has echoed through interviews and fan pages alike. It wasn't romanticized. It was raw truth. In a world where love stories are often defined by longevity, Annie's perspective reframed the conversation. She didn't chase closure through someone new. She didn't try to rewrite her ending. Instead, she honored the love she had for what it was: messy, beautiful, unfinished, but enough. Even when John passed away in 1997, Annie's actions spoke louder than any public statement. She didn't seek the cameras or write a memoir. She visited his memorials privately, quietly supported the John Denver Foundation, and continued to live a life rooted in service and humility. That kind of loyalty, unspoken and unwavering, is rare. And that's part of why this story remains so compelling. It's not just about a famous couple. It's about the kind of love that doesn't vanish when the papers are signed or when the cameras stop rolling. It's about holding space for someone even when they're no longer part of your everyday life. It's about remembering with tenderness instead of bitterness. John and Annie's story challenges the modern idea that relationships are only valuable if they last forever. Their love didn't, but it left a mark on each other, on their fans, on the songs that still fill up our senses. And through Annie's quiet strength and recent reflections, the depth of that love is finally being understood in full. This isn't just a love story. It's a reminder that some connections defy time, fame, and even separation. And for everyone watching, listening, or scrolling through another post about them, the feeling is the same. This mattered, and somehow it still does. John Denver's death in 1997 was one of those moments that seemed to freeze time. At just 53, he was gone in an instant, killed when the experimental aircraft he was piloting crashed into the ocean near California. Fans around the world were stunned. Even though his career had slowed during the 1990s, his influence never faded. His songs still played on radios, echoed at family gatherings, and found new life in film soundtracks and commercials. He had become more than a singer. He was a symbol of something pure, something honest. And suddenly, he was gone. Annie didn't speak publicly after the crash, but those close to her described her devastation in vivid terms. She cried for days, one family friend shared. Even after everything, she loved him. That grief wasn't just about a former husband. It was about losing someone who had shaped her life in ways few ever would understand. She had loved him through the highs and the heartbreaks, and even though their marriage had ended, the bond had never truly disappeared. His ashes were scattered in the Rocky Mountains, the place that inspired so many of his songs, and where they once shared a home together. The mountains weren't just scenic backdrops for John. They were sacred spaces. To have his final resting place there felt like the closing of a poetic circle. And for Annie, it meant part of him would always remain in the land they both adored. As the years passed, tributes to John only grew. New generations discovered Take Me Home, Country Roads, and Rocky Mountain High. But it was always Annie's song that struck the deepest chord. Listeners connected with the raw emotion in the lyrics, now layered with hindsight. They could hear not just love, but longing, not just joy, but a quiet ache. What has made their story linger through the decades isn't the divorce, it's what survived it. Most stories about love that doesn't last get folded away, but theirs has remained open, unfinished, and achingly real. They may have signed legal papers to go their separate ways, but something deeper held on. Whether through memories, music, or the quiet gestures no one ever saw, their connection never completely faded. Annie's recent words at 78 confirmed what many had long suspected. It didn't last forever, she said, but it was real. And that honesty hit home for so many. Because love doesn't always end when the relationship does. Sometimes it just changes shape, becoming softer and quieter but still present. She never remarried. She never tried to replace what they had. And when John passed, she mourned not just the man, but the life they could have continued building if time and choices had been different. Her silence all those years wasn't distance. It was dignity. And when she finally spoke, her truth wasn't dramatic or attention-seeking. It was reflective, full of gratitude and recognition for a love that changed her forever. In the end, it's that emotional continuity that keeps their story alive. It's not about fairy tale endings. It's about the way some loves stay etched into your soul, no matter how the world changes around you. Annie and John may have lived much of their lives apart, but their hearts never strayed far. Through grief, through memory, through a song that still plays in living rooms and concert halls alike, the connection remains. Love like that doesn't need perfection or permanence. It just needs to be real. And in the case of John and Annie Denver, it always was. Love stories like John and Annie Denver's remind us that real connection can't always be measured by duration or titles. Sometimes, the deepest bonds are the ones that didn't quite last, but left a mark forever. Annie Denver didn't have to confirm anything, but when she did, It gave fans a rare glimpse into a love that was complicated, but deeply sincere. What did you think of her statement? Do you believe they still loved each other, even after it all? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. And if you found this story moving, give this video a like, subscribe for more timeless stories, and don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. There's always more beneath the surface, and we're here to explore it with you. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.